Oh my God. Why are they the worst when the weather is the worst? I just don't get it.
You know what pisses me off? Is
What?
we live in New York, like upstate New York. Everybody knows that it fucking snows here and the weather is shit sometimes.
Yeah.
Yet no one still knows how to drive.
Yep. And I don't get it. Like, on the way home, on the Northway, the traffic slowed to literally 5 miles an hour.
Literally, yeah. Yep.
And I'm like, is there an accident? Like, what's going on? Probably people merging wrong. And then they're just being too many human beings. So I think some people need to die.
We need a plague.
Well, recently, what wasn't it like smallpox was hitting up again?
There you go. Just amplify it. The G virus, man.
Yeah. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Hotbar Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Wolf, and as always, with me, the man with the ginormous appetite and skinny body, Dmitry Setchnikov. I don't think I ever say your last name right. Ever.
No.
It's butchered.
But that's fine.
Well, it's not fine.
One of these days.
One of these days I'll get it right. I go throughout the day saying it in my head. I'm like, okay, Dmitry Setchnikov or Senchikov. I don't know. So,
all right, so it's Setchnikov.
Setchnikov. Oh, jeez.
There you go.
That is
three English words that combine equal my name.
That's actually much harder to say than I thought. In this episode, of course, we're going to be covering a couple topics that, either we find interesting or controversial or whatever. But to give everybody an update here, we do apologize for the hiatus that was, a month between the last episode and this one. It was mostly just us trying to figure out how we wanted to run the show, weekly or bi-weekly or whatever, and we've settled on bi-weekly. So this will be the start of it. Episode 3 will be, it will be out. Once it comes out, that means you'll have to wait 2 weeks for the next episode. It gives us time to get the content together, think up topics, get the video portion of it done, and be ready for when the next episode comes out. And it'll also give you guys an idea as to, when you can expect the next episode. So thank you all for being patient, of course, and hopefully we can get things rolling a lot smoother this time around. But to start things off, of course, I screwed it up the last episode. I'm not going to do it this time. Dmitry, what is your drink of choice tonight, my friend?
It's a nice cold glass of water. Kidding. It's Cold Snap.
Oh, geez, you went with the Cold Snap.
Yeah,
which
I can't.
is, strangely enough, their spring drink.
Yeah, and it's dead of winter out here. Fucking.
Yeah, it's something. Well, I decided to go with a whiskey highball. And what that is, of course, Dmitry, you might know, but our listeners / viewers may not know, is it's basically like a shot or two of whiskey, Jack Daniels, preferably sometimes, I guess. I wouldn't waste a good whiskey on something like this. And then the rest is like ginger ale. Okay. However, I got so sick of the regular, I decided to use Jim Beam Apple as the whiskey. And
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to be that good, but surprisingly enough, it is. So another dangerous combination of liquor and soda for me to consume. But I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. And I have to say, Cold Snap, really good.
Oh yeah, it's my hands down. I'm like I mentioned to you before, it was my 3 favorite Sam Adams are like back to back seasonally. Yeah. So
you're set for the whole year.
Seriously, yeah, I'm all good.
All right, well, let's get right into the first topic. This first topic this time around is going to be kind of similar to the last episode's first topic, where it does hit on I think, people's nostalgia a little bit. We're talking about remastering video games of the past. And, recently Resident Evil 2 was re-released as Resident Evil 2. Nothing special about that, but everybody's calling it the remake because it technically is. It's not just a remaster, but it's a remake of the entire game. Parts of the map are different, the game mechanics are different, the controls are different. So technically a remake. A remaster is just like, say, if they took the base game and just bumped the resolution or something and some shaders here and there or whatever. But the very idea of remastering games got me thinking, a lot of them are coming out. We have the Crash Bandicoot and Insane trilogy. We've got the Spyro trilogy. Now we've got Resident Evil 2. We've got so many games that have come out in recent memory that were, quote unquote remasters or remakes. And if you're wondering, Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, those are technically remakes because the game's they stayed the same, but it's now just remade into newer graphics.
HD graphics.
Everything was improved. So that's technically a remaster, because they didn't change anything. But it got me thinking about, what we talked about last episode, which was the classic systems, PlayStation Classic, Nintendo Classic, and how those systems kind of play off of people's nostalgia a little bit. And that's kind of what it wasn't one of the questions, but that's going to be a question for this week is, are remastering games once again taking advantage of people's nostalgia for the past? Resident Evil 2 is in people's memory is with fondness. People remember it with fondness because a lot of people feel as though it was the best Resident Evil in the series. Bar some people who think Resident Evil 4 is the best, which I think Resident Evil 4 certainly topped it off there. But Resident Evil 2 is a lot of people's choice game to go to. So, I mean, do you think that nostalgia plays a big role here? Or do you think it's just like, they obviously, companies want to make a quick buck, but they maybe want to see what they can do with some of their old properties and make them relevant again?
Well, I have kind of two views on this topic.
Mm-hmm.
And it really comes down to, what the remake of the game is, right? So all the ones you listed actually are funny enough. You probably picked like the three ones that actually turned out being phenomenal, right? So RE2 recently came out. For anyone has played it or hasn't played it yet, and if you are a Resident Evil fan, do yourself a favor, get it. Absolutely phenomenal remake of the game. Me and Adam are both playing it. I have nothing but good to say about it. Adam, I'm sure you feel the same way.
It scared the crap out of me. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, it's a very scary game. I was a huge I loved 4, and then I thought 5 was phenomenal. 6 is kind of where they hit their like rock bottom,
Yeah.
Then 7 came out, which is kind of going back to their roots, which I heard I hadn't played 7 yet actually, but I might pick that up after I finish 2. But I mean, it comes down to the game, right? So I feel like in a sense, yes, to some companies it might be another cash grab, similar to like the whole console thing that we talked about last episode. And to some developers, they're like, oh, you know what? Let's just remake something, spice up the graphics, and make a quick buck out of it.
Right.
But on the same time, if they can pull it off, and it truly does, like, it works, and it's not broken, and the graphics look incredible, I'm all for it. The Crash Bandicoot series that they remade, I didn't buy it. I actually played it at one of my buddy's houses, and phenomenal too. Like they made it look very nice. The gameplay was super smooth. I think they did a great job on that one. Spyro, I heard about them remaking that one. I never got a chance to play it though. Yep. That's also on my list to get to, but I'm trying to like correlate it with let's see, not Spyro, but just the whole topic, right? Like think of it like if we look at like remaking video games and then like remaking movies, right?
Right.
The premise is obviously kind of the same thing. A lot, if we look at the movie industry, like they're remaking a lot of old classics now that, and ironically, the shitty part is like a lot of them are flopping. I mean, in recent years, in 2018, what did we have? What was it? I think the Ghostbusters came out in 2018, the remake.
Was that?
Or was it 2017?
It might have been 2017, but
Was
I
it
just remember not
2017?
caring.
Yeah, because it was a terrible. It was really bad, man. You know what I mean? Oh wow, holy shit, I was way off. 2016. Jesus,
It's been that long already?
it's been that long.
Whoa.
Yeah. Holy shit.
The hate still flows.
The hate still flows, exactly. But yeah, like things like that from like the movie biz and even from a game, the gaming industry standpoint, there are just some remakes that I feel like you should leave alone. For instance, like, would I want to see a remake of Ocarina of Time? Part of me kind of does. If they can somehow pull it off, it would be awesome. But I want them to literally just improve the graphics and nothing else. Keep everything the same way, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I kind of almost want to say, like, you know what? Don't even bother, because, that's like a milestone in history that just shows, like, holy shit, like that was a video game at the time that literally blew everybody away.
Yeah.
Everything that it could achieve was, state of the art. It had never been done before. It was like the gameplay was incredible. You can go on, whenever you say Zelda, like, there are people that know about it, and it's probably because of Ocarina of Time,
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people who would agree with you that, I mean, they would want a remaster, but at the same time, they may not, because it's that the look and feel of it would be tainted in some way.
Right, exactly. And I don't know if you've watched this at all, but in the past couple of years, ever since the Unreal Engine had kind of became open to the public and everything, yep. I mean, the stuff that I am seeing people create, like, it's not like obviously full games or anything, but I've seen like people trying to remake Ocarina of Time in the Unreal Engine, and then I've seen people try and make like a really crazy looking Mario game out of it, and holy shit, am I impressed. I mean, they are very small tidbit like levels. It's like a box, and they just like, they detailed either Link or Mario, whatever. But I mean, holy shit, like, it looks incredible. You know what I mean? Like, which got me amped up, because at the same time I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, like, if they made this a full thing, like, hell yeah, I'd play it, because it looks great. But yeah, I don't know. It really, I kind of lean both ways, Yeah. That's just my perspective of it. It comes down to the game that's getting remade, and it comes down to, did the developers, did they simply just go in the mindset of saying, hey, you know what? Let's just bump up like the graphics like a tad bit, not really invest a lot of time into it, and then spit it out to the public again? Or did you really did you change every single like shader in the game? Did you change every single whatever it may be, every skin in the game, reskin everything to make it look really like HD?
Yeah, like with Resident Evil 2. So I see you're going a little bisexual on me there. Going both ways, are we?
Yes.
I'm going to respectfully disagree, just simply because, for the sake of disagreeing, because apparently we don't disagree enough.
Wow, whatever, dude.
Yeah, apparently we don't disagree enough to a lot of people, so I'm just going to say I disagree and not really have a point, just to say I disagree. No, I think, overall, nostalgia has got to play a big part in this, because, people, because of the internet, can say what's on their mind 24/7 to whoever might be listening. And if these game companies are listening, then they're going to want to capitalize on what people say they want. And another great example, Shadow of the Colossus. I don't know if you ever got a chance to play that game.
Oh, I watched videos of it.
Phenomenal. And it is one of the greatest games of PlayStation 2 era. They remastered it in PlayStation 3. Okay, so they bumped the resolution, they improved the frame rate, controls were the same, and it was still amazing. This generation, they remade it. So they sent it off to Blue Point, the masters of remastering, basically. This company does phenomenal work. And they remade the game. Improved game mechanics, controller mechanics and stuff. by far improved graphics and I think they bumped the frame rate. I can't remember if they did 30 or 60, but I think they may have done 60. And it just looked amazing. And so, that of course absolutely played on my nostalgia for 100%, because I'm just looking at this and remembering the time that I spent on that game way back in the day on PlayStation 2 and just thinking, this is one of the greatest games of all time. And it's really touted as that. Like, a lot of people consider that game to be one of the best games of all time. And I wholeheartedly agree. But, you have to really think, are they going to take advantage of us at that point? Are they going to make us, pay more than we should for a game that already exists? They're just freshening up a bit. And so that kind of works us into, I love how I can just transition like this, works us into the next question, which is...
Actually, no, I'm going to decline. I have a question for you, Adam.
A disagreement. Oh, no. Okay.
Here's what... Yeah,
damn, you cut up my transition, you bastard.
Yeah, no. Fuck your transition.
I thought I was being clever.
No, not this time around.
No.
Okay. So, here's my thing.
Okay.
And actually, this kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but that's because I really don't buy too many new games anymore.
Right.
I'm like the free to play advocate, kind of, which is...
I don't think anybody can blame you.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. But, so I got RE2, right? What did you think about the brand spanking new $60 price tag that they slapped onto that, marketing it as a brand new game?
Well, and... Because, you know what's funny? That's the next question, man.
God, I'm so good, dude. See that? Look at that shit.
You cut off my transition to ask me the question I was going to ask.
I'm going to ask you that question.
Basically, the question is full price or less. I shortened it, but it's basically like, should we be paying that much money? And I think we have to think about the quality. First and foremost, when we take a look at a game, especially with the promos that they showed for example, Resident Evil 2, when we look at what they're showing us and we see the transition that was once Resident Evil 2 to what it is now, we have to think the amount of time and effort and the manpower that went into making it that game. And I think that the $60 price point for Resident Evil 2, I was happy to pay. And it's hard to say that very often. We've been burned so many times in the past. Recently, the most recent game, and Joe's going to hate me for this one, but the most recent game of memory that I paid just so I could make a video, which I never ended up making anyway, was Fallout 76. Not worth $60, not even worth $20. That game is a train wreck, and a lot of people got burned, and they got even more burned when they found out they couldn't even return it for their money back.
That was a big flop.
And I'm like, how is that fair to the consumer when you have a return policy, but you tell them they can't return it? That goes against, I'm pretty sure, the law. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but I've always known that if you have a return policy, most stores do. I think it's a general thing that places have now. I mean, obviously, restaurants, you can't return your food if you eat it all. But if you buy a video game, buy a movie.
Oh, you're wrong there.
I mean, if you want to be really super scummy, sure.
There's always a way.
There's always a way. Yeah. Whatever. I was a cook for 7 months. I know what
sir,
it's like.
You didn't like the steak, then why the fuck you eat it all?
Yeah.
But it was cooked not the way I wanted it to.
Yeah, exactly. But you ate it, you fat fuck. All right. So, hit the microphone. So for the price point that Resident Evil 2 came out at, I was happy to pay. The counterexample to that would be Anthem. Okay, Anthem's not out yet, but it is coming to demo. Some people have already tried the VIP demo. The open demo, I'm just gonna call it a beta because that's what it is coming out for everybody this Friday, which I'm excited to try. Now, if I try this game and I feel as though what they're presenting to me isn't good enough, which sucks because I love BioWare. If it's not good enough, then I don't know if I'd feel comfortable paying $60. You know, generally when I was hard up for money, and I was hard for money too.
Hey,
When I was hard up for money, I didn't have a full-time job, or my job wasn't paying me enough. I normally would not pay. I refuse to pre-order, let alone buy brand new games, because you know they're not going anywhere. They're going to drop in price, and eventually I'll be able to afford it. But at the same time,
right.
you know,
hold on.
Okay.
Isn't Anthem not a remake though?
No, it's not. And
okay.
I know it's kind of an unfair comparison, but it's the
side of
like,
I see the point though. Yeah, you're right though, because new games are coming out, and is it like we always want to be able to justify spending that much? Because I mean, go back a few years, man. They were not $60. You know what I mean?
No, and that's the thing. Like some people actually, you know, they're like remembering fondly on the old days of Super Nintendo. It's like, well, games back then were like $50 or $60, and apparently some of them were $120. I'm like, I don't remember that. But like, you know, when you compare it to what the games were back then and what they are now, the price honestly hasn't moved a whole lot. But it's a matter of the economy didn't suck, first of all, back in the Super Nintendo era, so people could afford stuff like that. And secondly, yes, games are more expensive to make, but it can be proven very beneficial and to make a game of quality, as has been demonstrated by God of War, Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn, and I know those are all exclusives to PlayStation, but you have to kind of see the point I'm making here. When a publisher gives their developer time to do what they need to do, you can create a product that will sell and will make you tons of money if that's what matters to you, instead of actually making a decent experience. So, you know, again, I reiterate the point. Resident Evil 2, even though it's a remake, it's worth the price point because it gives you the original experience, but in a newer way. Whereas Anthem, people are questioning it all the time. Is it going to do great? Is it not? And from the people that have played the VIP demo, so far, they're saying it's okay, but they're not like wowed or impressed. They're always comparing it to Destiny 2 or Destiny 1, and it's been done to death. You know, it's like it's very generic looking compared to those games, you know, because those games did it first. And so, will it be worth $60? That's going to depend on whether or not EA actually wants to be a decent publisher for once, and you know, allow BioWare to put the content that belongs in the game in it. So really, that's what it comes down to. You know, generally, I think if you're going to remaster a game, like with you know, Shadow of the Colossus back on the PlayStation 3, or I'll even throw it out and say, you know, Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, even though their graphics were improved dramatically, the games remained wholly the same. Whereas Resident Evil 2 is still a remake because it's a completely different angle. First of all, camera angle, atmosphere, everything is completely different. Even though it is technically the same game, it's very hard to distinguish between the two these days. But I think if you think about it in the ways of like, well, how different is this Crash Bandicoot from the old one? Not really. So it's basically just a remaster. Then you have to start thinking, is it really, you know, fair to charge me $60 for a game that already exists? Or should I be paying maybe $30 or $40, which I think is fair, to say the least. So what's your take on what we should be paying for these games then? I'll fire the question back at you.
Okay. Well, I liked your answers. I honestly, I got to say that I agree with kind of most of what you said there, but that's solely because, like, for instance, yeah, the RE2, again, I'll go back to, yeah, I mean, it's 21 years later, right? We have RE2 remake, and all of a sudden, maybe it was more of a shock to me because I just hadn't bought like a brand new game before, you know, or in a while, I should say, not before. But I saw that and I was like, oh, holy crap. I'm like, $60. I mean, that seems like it's a lot. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you know, it makes sense because it's a new game. Well, not a new game, but like it almost feels like it is a new game though. I mean, 20 years later down the road, it's like because put it in the perspective of like gamers growing up in this generation, you know, they've probably never played the original. You know, they came out in 1998.
A long time.
Funny thing is, nor would they want to play it because they would probably say, "Holy shit, this is garbage. I don't want to play this. It's hard to play," which we hear a lot about nowadays about gamers saying about like older games is that they're so hard to play. Right. And yeah, that's true because back then games were actually pretty damn hard. You know, they weren't optimized. They weren't very like kind of gamer friendly, or like I should say, not like casually gamer friendly. You know what I mean? So I think the price point for that one, yes, is I'd have to agree with it just because, yeah, you're reliving the experience in a completely different perspective. Right. So, not to mention too, there's 2 different storylines. So ultimately, you're getting technically like 2 different playthroughs that you're gonna get, right?
Right.
Which is a cool spinoff. I like that they kind of incorporated that.
Well, I think in the original you were able to as well. But
were you?
I think so.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I didn't play the second one either. Original second one. I actually played the third game a little bit, and I actually enjoyed that one a little bit more. But a lot of people are saying the reason that, you know, the original Resident Evil 2 was harder than the current one, even though the current one is actually quite difficult, is because of the controls. The reason it was scary is because controls were so crap that it was impossible to do anything with, reactionary actions. So like if you saw a zombie and you wanted to, I don't know, turn around quickly or jump out of the way or whatever, you couldn't because the controls didn't allow it. They weren't responsive enough. And so that's mostly, I guess, what scared most people back in the day with Resident Evil 2 is that because the controls suck so much that they got scared. They were like, oh my God, I'm going to die and lose all this progress because, back in that day, you had the typewriters, but you had to have ribbons in order to save your game. If you didn't have any ribbons, right. You'd lose like an hour's worth of progress, if you died. So that's a bit rough. So definitely, that definitely plays.
Well, actually, I think they made that an option in this one too. I think if you chose the hardest difficulty, it actually. I can imagine. Yeah, I think they made that the option. Like you, throughout when you're playing, you find the ribbons, and you can actually have a limited amount of saves. So.
I really don't want to play it like that.
Yeah,
if there's a trophy, actually, which there probably is, I will have to play it like that. But
right. I love the challenge though. I mean, that game is really it punishes you, man. If you you have to play smart. You can't. It's not all gung ho like some of the other ones, right?
Oh yeah.
You can't completely punch your way out of this one, Chris Redfield.
Well, and here's the thing, though. I actually I watched a video recently, small tangent, where it was by a guy on YouTube by the name of Ricevic, and he did this very excellent video as to the reasons why he likes Resident Evil 6. I like it personally because I don't mind the action. As well as the zombies and stuff. I guess it's just a thing that I'm not too butthurt over. But he thought it was a crap game, but because the fact that it was co-op, it had that ability, and that it was campy and corny and cheesy and not Resident Evil, he enjoyed it more. And he's thankful that it happened because then we wouldn't have gotten Resident Evil Revelations 1 and 2, Resident Evil 7, remake of Resident Evil 2. We wouldn't have gotten these things had they not made Resident Evil 6 and realized their mistake.
That's actually a good point, yeah.
And I thought it was a fantastic video. I'll link to it in the description below, but I think it's worth a watch. He makes good points, and Resident Evil 6 is may not be the most beloved game in the series, but I think personally it's a fun one to at least play with your friends, if you got any, unless you're a loser. And I am. And, definitely hearty recommendations from both of us for Resident Evil 2 Remake. It is fantastic. I can't say enough good things about it. It's just so well done. And this is coming from 2 people who didn't play the original. Knew about it, just didn't play it. So any other thoughts, Dimitri, before we move on?
Well, actually, to get kind of back on this, I feel like this became like a Resident Evil podcast.
It's pretty much.
So yes, I back to the price point thing.
Mhm.
I agree with the $60 for that game. Yes. Now on the other two that we were talking about that came up is Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, right?
Mhm.
So I actually just pulled this up and I'm looking at it. So Crash Bandicoot, the trilogy, is on Steam right now for $40.
Yep.
I think that that's actually a pretty fair price point.
Agreed.
Because technically you're getting all three of the games
Yep.
for $40. Not to mention they remastered everything in all three of them, right?
Yep.
So it's not just one, it's triple. It's definitely worth the value. And as well as the Spyro game, I'm noticing on the PlayStation Store, same thing, $39.99.
Yep.
Or you can literally, I'm like on the main website here, it's saying you can get literally at Target for $10 less. You can get it for $30 if you get the physical copy.
Yeah.
So again, I think these types of deals that we're seeing are definitely worth it, because it's a 3-in-1 kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would I agree if this was just the single Spyro game or this like the first Crash Bandicoot that they remastered? I'd have to I would think about it, but it would definitely be one of those things like I'd like put it on my like Steam wish list, and then I'd wait till like winter time till it like dropped like 50% off. You know what I mean? Because they always have crazy sales.
Yeah.
So.
But I think it's another big point is that they know people are going to buy it because it's Crash Bandicoot, it's Spyro, and they're not just exclusive to PlayStation anymore. So there's multiple platforms to buy them on, and I think they realize they can get away with $40 because it's gonna be, as the old people say, it's gonna sell like hotcakes. So it's again that goes back to nostalgia. They know people are gonna buy this. And I haven't gotten Crash Bandicoot, but I just recommend that you buy it. That people buy it. I'm not saying you, Dimitri, but in general, you buy it to support my old studio, Vicarious Visions. Even though they never responded back to me about my frequent applications as a QA tester, I still love them, and I think that they do fantastic work. So, and Spyro, buy that too, because Toys for Bob works within that area as well. I don't mean to cut you off, but we should definitely move on to the next topic.
No, we've
beaten a dead horse with that one, but it basically was a Resident Evil thing. I mean, it's a really good game.
It just came out, man. It's hard not to talk about.
It really is.
I feel like we're not the only ones to be talking about it. You know what I mean?
At this point, yeah. So the next topic is not a question. Believe it or not, it's just a topic. It's
an answer.
It's an answer. You have to think about the question. It's actually more of just news, really. And I don't know if you're aware. You haven't played Destiny. It is a good game. If you're looking for something,
stop it.
If you're looking for something grindy, if you're okay with doing that. If you're not okay with trying to dive in to see what the hell the story is, I wouldn't recommend it. But gameplay wise, it definitely is Bungie at their best. When it comes to the gameplay, the shooting in it is responsive. It feels great. Graphically speaking, I mean, between Destiny 1 and 2 didn't really improve that much, but it's got its own feel and look to it.
No, I agree with you, yeah.
Bungie and Activision had started their partnership in 2010. I didn't realize this. I found this out once all this happened. 2010, they started developing Destiny 1. That released in 2013. And They continued their partnership, of course, through Destiny 2. Recently, and this is a partnership, okay? This wasn't like Activision buying Bungie. It was a partnership kind of like with Microsoft that Bungie had with them when they were developing Halo. But recently, they had announced that they split. Activision and Bungie went their separate ways. They ended their contract 2 years early. And I think this is an interesting thing because generally that doesn't happen. You know, companies will ride out their contract, you know, like EA will probably ride out their contract with their Star Wars licensing, which God help us. But Activision and Bungie split, and I think most of it was because, you know, Activision expressed displeasure in the poor sales of the Forsaken expansion on Destiny 2. And some people are speculating that was pretty much the last straw for Bungie, and they terminated their contract immediately because apparently, allegedly, there was a celebratory party after that happened at Bungie. So, were they happy that they got rid of Activision, or they split up from Activision? I'm going to say they got rid of them because, you know, Activision's kind of like, they're basically EA light. You know, they're.
I mean, they from what I read too, is that they kind of had tension between one another, so it almost seemed like it was kind of a necessary split.
Yeah. But they split up. It is unbelievable news because it never happens. You know, usually a publisher, and I thought it was Activision bought Bungie. No, I was completely wrong. They were just a partnership, and so even if Activision terminated it, Bungie wouldn't have shut down or anything like that, or, you know, they you know, it wouldn't have happened like with Visceral Games where EA just shut them down because they own them. Which, by the way, technically, if you think about it, is slavery. So it's surprising, but what's most surprising about this whole split is the fact that Activision, they say they're in the process, but I'm thinking they're still going to go through with it. Activision says Bungie can keep the Destiny IP. That never happens. The publisher always keeps the IPs. And Activision said, you know what? It's yours. And right. I'm hoping they go through with it. I think that is one of the most interesting moves I've ever seen. A developer who gets to keep their IP after partnering with a publisher who has their name all over it, and they're going to keep it running. You know, I think they've made enough money. Bungie technically is an indie developer, a very big one, but one that has made enough money off of their IP to sustain themselves. And hopefully, in my eyes, this means good things for Destiny 2, maybe it's too far gone at this point, but also very, very hopefully great things for Destiny 3 if they do so choose to make one. If they don't and they decide to go with a new IP, I'd be happy anyway. So yeah, I'm just gonna throw it at you, man. The split of Bungie and Activision, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, like to your point, I mean, it's a rare occurrence kind of in this day and age. But I feel like it was kind of necessary, right? Because they can kind of go their separate ways. I mean, it is crazy that they kind of gave them the rights and say, hey, you know, make the game what you wanted it to be, which is anyone that was a Destiny fan. And unfortunately, I never really played the game. I played for a very little bit. Yeah. Really cool concept. I mean, I kind of got the vibe of a I'm blinking on it now.
MMO?
No, not MMO. Holy Borderlands. There you go. There it is.
There you go.
Kind of that Borderlands kind of vibe to it. Definitely more spacey, obviously, because it's in space. Mm-hmm. But the whole, like, you know, you'll find better guns. You'll find, like, you kind of grind a little bit. You're right. It is kind of a grind game, but if you're into that, it's right up people's alleys, you know? Yep. It's like that mix between, like, a really cool, like, Halo, Borderlands, whatever, MMO kind of thing, all combined into one. So, what do I think of the future of the Destiny franchise? It's kind of hard to gauge because I feel like Destiny 2, all the people that really loved Destiny 1 had definitely bought Destiny 2 because they were so like amped up for it. Um, and I'll need your input because I know you play Destiny 2.
A lot,
but have they released like expansions and everything for it?
Oh yeah,
for Destiny 2.
Oh yeah, the
How
most
many?
recent most recent one was Forsaken. It was technically one major expansion, but they had two mini expansions called The Curse of Osiris and Warmind. I haven't played either any of the expansions, but apparently with Forsaken, it wasn't enough in sales for Activision to stick around.
Interesting. Okay.
Right. And that's the speculation at the moment, is that they were so displeased with it that they just said, either they said we want out, or Bungie said, you know what, forget you guys.
Right.
So I don't know fully the story. I don't think any of us are ever going to know. And if that champagne party was true, then maybe we got a pretty good idea as to who wanted out. But yeah, Destiny 2, I think, again, you know, to your point, if it's a game that you like, you know, a game type that you like, where it's grindy, you get new gear, you can make your character look cool, you can have different classes, whatever, then you're gonna have a good time.
Yeah, but I just feel like, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like, you know, coming from, I mean, this comparison is gonna suck ass, but so, you know, I played MMO. I played Guild Wars. Obviously, that was like my baby back in the day.
Great game.
And they released, you know, 2 expansions for it. 3, sorry. Eye of the North was the last one that got released for that game. And honestly, when they had released Eye of the North, there was some game-breaking shit that I still to this day think that everyone got insanely, like, everyone got blazed in the room and we're like, yo, let's just make some dank ass skills, bro. And that were so overpowered, and like you just became like, and it was so easy to get them too, that it was like, really, guys? You know, like all the rare shit in that game, like ectoplasms, you know, obsidian shards, like you can farm UW basically solo, just wreck the boss, do whatever by yourself. It was stupid. There, it comes to a point, right? Like, where in Destiny 2 do we say, like, are they going to draw the line and say, you know what? Okay. And they may have already drawn it, right? Like Forsaken, by the sound of it, had shitty sales. So maybe that was it. That was what took the cake. And everyone was like, you know what? Let's draw our losses. We'll still kind of have like our small little team that's going to, you know, keep putting out patches or maybe small little updates from time to time. But I think they're going to kind of bury the hatchet here and say, you know what? Let's either possibly make Destiny 3. I don't know what your take on that is. Does it look like there may be another one?
I think with the amount of money they've garnered from Destiny 2 prior to Forsaken, I think at this point they could go with a Destiny 3 if they really want to keep going with this IP. Now, without Activision being there, they might be able to make a proper game. Where they go from where they ended it on Destiny 2, I have no idea. They could keep going with it. And I will admit, Destiny 2 had a story. It wasn't like a great one. It started off looking good, but you know, it was definitely far better than the first Destiny. The first Destiny, I don't know if you realize, but the majority of the story was contained within these books called grimoires, and you could only access them on their website. They weren't even in the game. So it's just like, okay, you're gonna make us go to the website to read? I mean, I don't mind reading personally, but a lot of people really
I can't
don't.
fucking read.
Yeah. A lot of people don't like to read, and so that's why audiobooks are a thing. And so, you know, people were up in a tizzy. It's just like, this makes no sense, you know, like, where's the story in the game? We're playing the game for the story, and you're taking it out of the game. And
right, that doesn't make any sense to me.
It was ridiculous.
I feel like every game in like now, like in this day and age, there needs to be some kind of sure, like the story could be all jumbled up and kind of not make sense, but at least let there be like four major key points that, like, okay, dude wakes up on an island, needs to craft some crazy shit to get off the island, gets abducted by fucking aliens traversing the sea, and then what, what I mean, there's like some, like, anything, right, to like make some kind of story happen. You don't go in it like blinded and kind of play it by ear.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are not going to like that, I feel like. You can only have a hack and slash type of game for so long.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know if you heard of this meme, but it came from Destiny, where everybody was like saying, I don't have time to explain what I don't have time to explain. And
no, I never heard that one.
It's a cutscene in the game of a female robot, I believe they're called Exos, who has been following your character, and your ghost. Your ghost is a little guy that, shields you and revives you and stuff like that. And she finally reveals herself, doesn't say what her name is, and says that exact line when you ask her a question. She says, I don't have time to explain what I don't have time to explain. What the fuck does that mean? What does that mean? We don't. None of this was explained. It may have been in the grimoire. I don't know. I didn't read it, but the whole first game was completely just a mess. Mostly people just played it because the boss battles were fun, and PvP, if you like that. The Crucible was garbage. It's always been garbage.
I will give them this though, because did you notice? So after the first one had come out, right? We kind of saw this kind of, well, I mean, I guess the premise of the game has always been there, but like, I guess like a clear carbon copy in my eyes that I saw that came out right after Tom Clancy's The Division.
Oh yeah,
like literally the same fucking thing, but now you're just like in a massive city. You get new guns, you get new gear, like you know what I mean. It's just not in space. So I guess they kind of right, exactly. Like I guess like props to them for kind of like sparking that little light in other developers' eyes and going, oh wow, that kind of format. We forget that people like grindy shit because they want to go, and kill 2 hours doing dailies or whatever. So
well, I mean, if we really want to go backwards, Blizzard kind of did it first. I mean, I don't know if they did it first, but they popularized it with Diablo. You got your action RPGs, you go in, you kill a bunch of stuff, you get new loot, and you do it all over again. That's basically what Destiny is. And I'll admit, Destiny kind of popularized it for the shooter genre, for sure. But, Destiny 1 was a mess. Destiny 2 had a story. A lot more cutscenes, no grimoire. And it seemed like it was going to be good. It had a main villain, okay, for the base game. You had this compelling narrative where, and this guy was badass before the game released. Everybody was all up in arms about Gaul is his name. He was super badass. It's like, this dude's coming in, taking over the tower, taking the Traveler, getting the light for himself. He's taken your light, your powers, and has basically kicked you off the top of the tower and left you for dead. Luckily, you don't die, but you are without your powers for a short period of time. I think if they had gone with that, if they had stuck with that narrative throughout maybe half the game, it would have been a far better game, because now you're learning how to survive without your powers. In Destiny 1, you had, like, Destiny 1 characters do not carry over, just to make that known. You do not carry your characters over. You have to create a whole new character. So
I was going to say, it's like a completely different game in a sense.
It's funny because you can't carry your characters over, but the character customization screen at the beginning is the exact same one. So you can basically recreate your own character. Okay. You just start from ground zero, basically. And so had they actually continued doing it that way, where your character plays half the game, half the story with no powers whatsoever, that would have been a much better game. Because now you're learning to use your skills rather than, just abuse your power or whatever. But it was almost right off the rip. You get your powers back, and then it's just like you're a superhuman again, and it's like, well, okay, because not too long after you meet characters, NPCs that don't have powers. They're not guardians. They don't have a ghost to follow them around and revive them and heal them and stuff. So they've learned to survive. That would have been a cool idea, to have your character live among them, learn their ways, and understand how they survived without being guardians. And so, I don't know. It was a better attempt, but, going back to the split between Activision and Bungie, a lot of people, want to remind everybody that it's not just Activision's fault. It's a majority of their fault, okay, that they made these games like this. But Bungie did have a hand in a lot of stuff that they put in the game, especially when it came to the story. I mean, they wrote it. So we can't not blame them for screwing up the story, or at least making a very uncompelling story. So, I don't know, with this split, I think Bungie has a better shot of not having any kind of outside influence. Like I've said for BioWare, if BioWare went indie developer, I'd support them 100%. Because then they could do whatever they want. They can take as much time as they need to make the best game that they can possibly make. I say the same thing about Bungie. If they stick without a publisher, they will do far better, in my opinion.
And that's what I heard too. Bungie now got like this $100 million, not loan, but whatever it was from Nest Ace or Nest. It's something N.
It's a Chinese I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, but for like another side project for just them. So I mean, it's all hush hush now, but who knows? Maybe that'll be like the next big thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and fingers crossed. I want Bungie to succeed. Their best days unfortunately are behind them. They could recreate the best days again, but I don't know if they can hold a can. They could
remake all the Halos.
Yeah. Well, I wish they could, but they can't. Microsoft, that's one split that actually the publisher kept the IPs. But their heyday is behind them, and I hope they can recapture those good old days and make a decent game. But for right now, we're gonna have to wait and see what Bungie does, because if this company that supplied them with $100 million doesn't expect to be the publisher, I doubt that that's the case, but if they don't expect to be the publisher, they just want to help Bungie do the best they can, great. But if this is yet another publisher that just wants to step in and get their dime, I don't know. I'm kind of worried about Bungie, but here's hoping that that's not the case. Final thoughts, Dimitri, on the split between Activision and Bungie?
I mean, again, I think it's ultimately for the best.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to see what Bungie now does with that lump sum of money. Hopefully it's a really cool project that kind of picks them up from, or it'll bring their name back onto the board. You know what I mean? Because I feel like they definitely kind of fell off for a while. So maybe this is what they needed. So we'll kind of see where that goes. Yeah. As for Activision, it's really, it's kind of hard to say. I really don't know, because what do they do at this point? Do they invest more time into Destiny 2, or do they say, you know what, let's just scrap it, and kind of said what I said before, have a small team that kind of does like the daily kind of maintenance of it. We'll add like small tidbit things here and there, and let's maybe collectively have them devote their minds to something new. People are always looking for something new in this generation. So I guess at this point, it's kind of the like time will tell type of thing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, all in all, I think it's for the best, because, once they go their separate ways, it's not Jamie Heineman and
Adam Savage.
Thank you, Adam Savage, button heads anymore.
Yeah.
They split up, and now they're doing their own thing, and, they're both happy now, and they're, So I don't know. We'll see. I think it's for the best.
Well,
But
as far as we know, Activision stated that they are just going to turn their focus onto more. I think they use the words owned IPs. So what that means, I have no idea.
What that means, right? Yeah.
I'm guessing that means more focus on Call of Duty. You know, I mean they own it.
True.
They've owned that series since the very beginning. So maybe they want to turn their focus on that. Maybe they're talking about IPs that they haven't announced yet, and so that's kind of the most vague thing they can say is their owned IPs. But yeah, we'll have to see what Activision does. I'm sure they'll be fine. They've got their merger with Blizzard, so they've got plenty of money rolling in. But
you're right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so the biggest hopes go towards Bungie. We hope the best for you guys. We hope that you guys create something fantastic. Once again, return to the forefront of what you used to be. And more than likely, I mean, these guys, all they know is sci-fi. So they're probably going to do another sci-fi. I'd be damn surprised if they didn't. And I think it'd be a very big treat if they didn't. I would like to see what else they could do with the talent that they have on hand, instead of just going to science fiction or science fantasy.
It's now actually going to be a 2D scroller where you actually need to manage your restaurant.
I believe they have something called Overcooked.
In Chicago.
There's already a game called Overcooked, and it does. Exactly
did
that.
they really?
Yes.
They release that one for the Switch?
I don't know about the Switch, but maybe they might.
I think Overcooked came. Hold on, I gotta Google it now.
It looks like a lot of fun, especially with your friends. But yeah. So that's gonna do it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. If you agree or disagree, feel free to leave a comment.
Or agree to disagree.
Feel free to leave a comment in the video description. Video description if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast, I don't believe you can leave comments. You can try. I think you can on SoundCloud. Spotify and iTunes, obviously not. But
which just means you got to check out the YouTube channel.
Check out the YouTube channel or shoot us a message on Twitter. We are on Twitter at Hotbar Podcast. We're always looking at it. So if you got any comments on the videos on any of the episodes or whatever, don't be afraid to shoot us a message over there. We're a free and open source podcast. So, unlike Capcom, we do not lock content that's already existing on the disc. And so we bid you people a farewell for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Dimitri, for your input as always. My friend is greatly appreciated. And I promise you guys, we are on an actual official schedule from here on out. So expect the next episode in 2 weeks from today, whenever this gets released. I don't know what today is, whatever today is for you. When this gets released, expect another one in 2 weeks. And that's the way it'll be until we make it big and then we can do this for a living. But for Dimitri, I'm Adam Wolf, and we will see you guys in the next one.
Hello.